Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first. I hear you calling music. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. And speaking of that, my guest is. Now, I have a problem with the term drag queen because some people find it offensive. Some don't. My guest describes herself as a drag queen and a sculptor for change. She has a fascinating life. She's going to tell us all about her life and all the many interesting people she's met, although I doubt that any's as interesting as she is. But anyway, my guest is Curtsy.
Hello, Diane.
Hello, Diana.
Hi, Diana.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Well, thank you for coming. My shoe was caught on the chair.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
So, anyway.
I'm very happy to be here. Very pleased. And thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And thanks for sharing your story with all of us.
Yes.
So, now, okay. Now, you describe yourself as a drag queen.
Yes, and I do that proudly. I go by the drag name Curtsy. It's a bow of respect, a polite nod to other folks, I hope. And I take that from not just where I am, but where I became. I was not born Curtsy. I was given the name Curtis Carmen. And society named me. My parents named me. My family named me. I didn't get to pick that name.
You mean Curtis?
Curtis, yes.
Right.
And so I grew up that, and that was a struggle always for me. I had struggled just, being who I was. So I didn't know who I was supposed to be, and I'm not sure I do now either. But I came into drag, and I was very, very lucky. I was very fortunate to have a very sweet, dear, magnanimous drag queen called Sweetie.
Oh, who was a darling.
Yes, Sweetie
She
was
was my Facebook friend. Sweetie was a darling.
Sweetie was bigger than life. And
literally.
Always raised the bar for, and not just on show business, but living.
Poor Sweetie battled cancer for many years and sadly died in 2017.
Yes. I know, I miss her.
Yeah.
And I felt, after my journey growing up in the little town where I came to New York, but at some point, I was like, well, I was doing a little bit of drag, and I wasn't sure. And
Were you doing it in your small town?
No.
No, you come from Massachusetts.
Yes, I come from a small town in Massachusetts called Foxborough.
Which is more conservative, they say, Massachusetts, than many other places, as in Bandon, Boston, that kind of thing.
I fell for the myth that I came from a very liberal society. But the reality was, in small town, you're everybody's business, and you're watched over, I think. Or I felt that way, anyway. And it was Sweetie that bestowed me with the drag name Curtsy. And I thought, wow, I made it. So, that was good enough for me. That was nice, because I wasn't so imaginative myself or too clever. And she did it for me. And it was based on, I think, an anagram of my name. So, and that fit for me very well. And I grew up, I thought it was just a wonderful, happy childhood. And it was, we grew up on the edge of rural country. So there were
Do you
farms.
have siblings?
I have siblings. We came from a very planned family. So we have like 4 years in between us.
Wonderful.
So my oldest sibling, I do not, I wasn't, close with. Now I'm becoming closer now. It's funny as you age how things grow and change, and that's nice. But I grew up in a little town, and so we would play in the woods. That was our place for freedom. And that's where I discovered boys, and that was always a safe place, and it was natural. Everything was natural and easy, and I never thought about it or any question. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older when you start to realize, you're becoming socialized more, and you start to realize, there's norms and ways that the things go. Sometimes some people have other opinions of how it's supposed to be, and I felt a little cloistered. So I finally ran away. I ran away from that. But I grew up in a setting that was, I knew things didn't quite sit right with me.
Right.
And I didn't think it was just me. I could never figure out, was it me or was it the outside world? And I grew up atheist, so but in a community that was very heavily Christian, Catholic, and the town right next door, I lived on the town border, and the town next door was a very Jewish dominated community. Yeah, and so a lot of friends, they were like, well, if you don't go to St. Mary's, you must be Jewish. I was like, no, I don't even know what that is really. I'm not sure, no, I don't think so. And I had this sense like normal, it's a setting on the dryer. I don't know what it is, what it's been, and I never saw it as being the fun thing to do or to, but at the same time, I didn't feel an ease in there. So I think I ran away from that little town, and I went to the next biggest town. And at this time, it's adolescence, and I'm aware I'm attracted to men, and I'm gay, but not living a gay lifestyle, just that. And I remember when I moved away from my town, and I'd been away for 6 months, a year, and some friends came to visit me, and I was so nervous, and they said, we kind of knew already. You didn't have to run away. But that was my friends. There was also the other people that maybe weren't as kind or as generous, and I always felt a little bit, it was like Stephen King, it was that town, a little small town, Monster's really the neighbor next door. Yeah.
Excuse me, how did your parents feel about it?
I never, my parents had separated, so I grew up in a non-supervised setting, and it was really, I had older siblings, so I knew from them what to do or not to do maybe, and it was also a time of great liberation. It was, 70s, so
right.
Post-Vietnam, and geez, I think I was so stoned in high school. I don't know how I made it out of there, but
really, weren't we all?
Yeah.
But beautiful days in those days.
Yeah, I thought, and people had a voice. Even as kids, I remember having sit-ins in school.
Sure.
And that was like cool, and we ruled because it was mass rule, but
And our generation, we baby boomers, blanketed the world.
Yes.
There were more of us than anything except insects.
Yes.
So, now, what gave you the courage to come to New York?
I eventually moved to Boston, which was the closest city. And I had a roommate that was many years my senior. And he had a friend in New York. I came to visit. And I remember looking out from Rockefeller Center. I'd never seen so much cement. Everything was, manufactured. That was it. And there was a couple green spots. That was like Central Park. And I thought, this is a place for me. And within a year, I had moved here because I had somewhere to stay. I had somewhere to stay unless I had a job opportunity. And I thought, this is too easy. And I found out afterwards that it wasn't as easy as just moving there.
Yeah, New York today is very expensive.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to find any kind of apartment, much less an affordable apartment.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't have those struggles. So that was an easy thing, and it was nice. And also it was in a, again, with a more mature individual, someone more senior to me. And I think not like a mentorship or a guardianship, but safe. And also bestowing knowledge that, the world's bigger than you might realize, or, there's things out there that, you don't get it on Leave It to Beaver.
Right, exactly. When you say beaver in New York, it means something.
I wouldn't have thought that, really.
Anyway, ain't no beaver shots on this show. And not with us, for obvious reasons. But anyway, so, you just got that. Okay. So now...
You'd be surprised what I might divulge, I don't know.
Oh, well, there you go. Stay tuned. You never know. But now... how did you navigate when you first got here to New York? You had a place to stay. You had a job. Did you meet other gay people? Had you met them in Boston and rendezvoused with them here?
I had already had one relationship in Boston. And then when I came here, eventually I had another relationship with someone my own age and ilk. And it was hot. Yeah. But it was also, I like to imbibe, and it was a rocky relationship, and it was a kind of a little bit immature. But that was, for a year, and it was fun, and going out and partying. And I remember one night I was out and just fascinated with this kind of kooky person I met. And that turned out to be the love of my life. I was very, very fortunate in love.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I couldn't have two relationships. So I very cleverly told my roommate at the time, I said, oh, this is too hard. I can't be in two places at the same time. So I'm going to introduce the two of them, and that'll be, a little merry little family.
Sure.
And my roommate's jaw dropped to the floor. And he said, are you that thick? Are you that, you can't really believe that. I said, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. And they both dumped me. Oh, it was a hard dump. It was hard. It was Christmas in New York alone. It was rough. But then eventually the person that I had met that I was so pitter-patter over, it was kind of, again, it was somebody much more mature than I am, I think, and just much more worldly and animated. And
which was wonderful because as a newcomer to New York and a very young person, you needed somebody to keep you safe, to warn you,
Yes, and that was part of that, getting yourself a little cleaned up, kind of brush yourself off. And but also, it was also a stimulating intellectual and cultural thing that I didn't realize how much I desired that. It wasn't normal. I knew it was not normal, and that was interesting to me and fun and pleasurable, and still is.
Sure.
Yeah, the other side of the tracks.
There you go. So now, if a young person today wanted to come to New York, it would be very different and very difficult, wouldn't it?
I'm sure. We all back then, and to me, I understood New York as Manhattan, and I think that today, the kids, young people, I say kids, but that's not meant to be diminishing. Young people, and they go to Brooklyn, and that's one of the hot spots. Or you go to the Bronx, where life is. You can have a life. You don't have to be
or Queens or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So I think, I think it's how fortune unfolds, and I think part of it is to be open. If you come with your idea of what it's going to be, then and you lock into that, it's not as easy, or I would imagine it would be more difficult. Whereas if I was like, I'm a dumb kid from a little hick town, but I was much more open to things, I think, and so. Hey, try this. And I had somebody with me that was like, hey, why don't you try this? You like visuals? Why don't you paint something?
Well, you're a sculptor, aren't you?
I studied sculpture. I like photography, and I love taking pictures. That was, and then I went into the darkroom and I went, oh my God, I can't see anything. This is not, I need light. Where's the light? I was trying to find the light. So then I went to painting, but I was also, at that point, drag was part of my life. And that's what I was interested in bringing to my art practice. And in photography and painting, it was representational. Here's a picture of a drag queen, or here's a painting of a drag queen. And I love painting, and I felt fine with that medium, but I found eventually with sculpture that maybe I could expand it to more than just representational, but some of the source material behind it, and I also, not that I knew it, I was investigating for my own sake to find out what is it to me. I think those are good questions to ask yourself anytime.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, the unexamined life isn't worth living.
Yes.
And if you're an artist, you have to know yourself, or try to at least.
Or at least open to discovery. I never seem to find the answers. But I have tried to enjoy the path.
But the search is the journey's the point.
I like the journey a lot. Yeah.
So now, how do you make a living being someone some people would not automatically hire?
I think part of it's a generational thing. I come from an older generation where I've been in New York so long, and I was fortunate to get a housing situation that was affordable. And also, I'm a ward of the state, because of medical condition, HIV. I'm HIV positive. Oh, don't be. It's part of the journey.
You look great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it ends up being requires management.
But doesn't everything like diabetes?
Yes. Yeah. And
it's just one more.
Do my naughties in between, and that's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Cool.
That's a big part of it. So so drag and that experience were two things that formed my being, I think. And I also in that mix, we put in maybe a sense of spiritual quest.
Right.
And again, I'm never looking for the answers, but where are those paths? I want to know where the paths go and like that. And I think it goes back to growing up in the woods. You know, there was never one path to take. You're like, oh, well, we can go this way, you know, see the different scenery. And in that mix, personally, I try not to cling on to anyone. I'm not a devout follower of anything.
Good.
I don't know if that's a very American thing.
No, because some people fall victim to cults and other things.
Yeah, and I've done that. I've been there. I've been to San Francisco, and you know, before you know it, I'm hanging out in these communes, and then luckily blinders open, blinders closed. And remember that. No wisdom here.
No, but no, you have a life a lot of people would envy. You know, I'm sure some of you out there in other areas, not New York, watching this, think, gee, I'd love to have that kind of life. I wish I had the courage. I wish I could. I wish I could. I wish I could. And some people will actually come to New York or Los Angeles or Chicago or somewhere, Detroit.
Yes.
New Orleans, somewhere, and have that kind of life. Many won't. They'll just wish all their lives, and then one day they'll be like 97, and they'll say, I should have done that.
So I had a very striking experience, and this is, I left my hometown 40 years ago, 45 years ago, even longer, and social media came along. There was Facebook, and I didn't realize I had put my high school on there, and suddenly people were contacting me from my hometown, which I had run away from, and I thought, I don't know if I'm ready for this, and so a few of them I answered, and one coincidentally happened to say, I said, well, look, I'm not the person you maybe think I am. I'm really kind of down and out, and I just, dress silly, to walk out the door. But
I'm not like a gazillionaire living in New York in Trump Tower or something.
One day he called and he said, I'm around the corner, I'm in the Irish bar, and you want to come over and have a beer? I said,
cool is
all right.
this?
And it was a nice bit of catching up, but I think that's what he was reaching out to, was, it so turns out later that he was also, he was migrating away himself, but much later. And he wanted to know, is it safe out there? I don't know what it was. And I said, yeah, go for it. And when you're younger, it's easier to manage.
Yeah.
And I didn't come with this ideal of like, oh boy, am I going to be, rock star #1, But the path was meandering. And I did go back to school. I had and I was later in life, so I was older and able to really partake of it, I think, more than if I was younger. And it helps if you know where you want to go, or what, And I knew what I loved. I loved art. And I'm a little slow on the uptake. Apparently, it wasn't until I finished all my schooling and went, oh, this really isn't a job. It's not a career.
Yeah.
It's a passion.
It can sort of be a job if you become an art director.
Yeah, you can apply it to things like that. And that's not what I was following. I was just following the poetics of it. And I still love that with passion, and it's okay for me. And then, you can have a show in a phone booth.
Sure, you can have a show in your apartment.
Yes.
Invite people in to look at it.
Yeah, I'm old school, so that's okay with me. I have friends like that. It's not just myself, but, I have other community.
I have a wonderful friend who's a photographer, and she puts her photographs framed in her hallway of her building.
Yeah.
And people see them and comment on them, and,
Yeah, it's a nice way to share.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know it.
So anyway, what are your plans for the future?
Well, I'm mature, as you might have guessed. So, I'm considering because I had a life with a partner, a long relationship,
right?
And he has gone on to wherever they go on to, souls in the cosmos. Jack Dower show.
Who is
People
known
may
as,
know,
and we will be doing another show about the late great Jack Dower show, also known as Flawless Sabrina. If you've seen the documentary The Queen from 1968. The MC and the producer is Flawless Sabrina. We'll be doing another show about Sabrina at some future date.
Yes.
But and that must have been shocking to lose your partner that way.
Well, as I said, he was 20 years my senior. Life doesn't go on for eternity.
No.
I hate to disappoint
And neither
anyone
does
out
this
there,
show
but
because we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
But so if there's something you can say to young people out there, so they know that it's safe to come to New York or any big city.
I don't even think you have to go anywhere so much. It's within yourself, and it's very simple. Own it. Own it. Say, this is who I am. I am me. I'm comfortable in whatever you're wearing. And I don't mean literally the clothes, but
Yeah, but you know that in some
mental.
small towns,
Yes,
people do not take kindly to...
That's why I like travel. Travel is always good to get out of those shoes that are uncomfortable and slip into a little, cushy running shoe that you can, trot around in.
And run and...
Yeah, and go see where it goes. I don't think there's any one advice. You have to, I'm so old. These are old sayings, but you have to love yourself.
Sure, and you're not so old. I'm older than you are, as you know.
You're so kind.
Oh, it's true. But anyway, the age of Adeline. No, I'm ancient. Anyway, they dug me out of a pyramid for the show. But anyway, my guest has been self-described drag queen, a term she likes to use, and sculptor of what?
I'm a sculptor for change. I like to, it's a joke I have. It's my running joke,
A sculptor for change.
Yeah.
Curtsy, she is, yes, a drag queen and a sculptor and a New York personality. And I met her at the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion at the New York Historical Society.
Was instigated somewhat by drag queens.
There you go.
And
Yes, absolutely. And Jack Doroshow was one of the founding members of today's world. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, my guest has been drag queen Curtsy. I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. Hey, even if no one else loves you, I love you. You love them too, right?
Yes. I love you very much.
I love you very much too. And here we go. And I will see you next time. And love yourself and cherish yourself and take care of yourself, because you are the best you who will ever exist. I love you a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye.